Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Welcome to day 213 of the year. How are you feeling this morning? How did you wake up? Hopefully you are well rested and you have some quiet outside yin time to start your day, to start the cycle of a new day, the cycle of a new morning. We're on day 213 of the year, and according to 365 Tao by Deng Ming Dao, our word for today is immigrant. That's an interesting word for me today because today is actually the 15-year anniversary of moving to Costa Rica for me. I've been an immigrant for more than half my life. I left my home country when I was 23 years old. I'm 45 now, so more than half of my life has been spent as an immigrant. I live outside of my home country. And as I said, today's a big anniversary for me, celebrating 15 years of being here. So this is going to be an especially poignant passage for me on day 213 of the year. Have a think about that immigrant status as well. Does that apply to you? Have you lived abroad? Are you an expat? This might be something that's going to be poignant for you as well on day 213 of the year. So grab your book, grab your journal and something to write with. Find a nice quiet and comfy place where you're not going to be disturbed for the next 15 minutes or so while we read together. I'm outside in the natural world and it is very windy here in Costa Rica today. A lot of offshore wind blowing, which makes wonderful conditions for surfing. I surfed all morning, which was a wonderful way to start the day. But now it's time to be here, now and present, and read together on day 213 on the subject of immigrant. Magic doesn't work in this new place. Native poetry has lost rhythm and rhyme. Familiar food is labelled a curiosity. And hostile stares replace familial love. To be an immigrant is to be solitary in the midst of millions. Oof. If you've ever, even if you don't live abroad, but you've ever traveled extensively to somewhere that's, very, very different from your homeland, that may be a very poignant sentence. I'm going to reread it again. To be an immigrant is to be solitary in the midst of millions. Immigrants travel from their native lands for many reasons, but in general, they all involve expectations for a better life. For this, they will risk uncertainty, exploitation, discrimination, hostility, poverty, and sometimes even separation from family. I have been through all of those things. Those who survive develop an inner fortitude and determination that sees them through their suffering. The preservation of spirituality is as much a concern as anything else. Spirituality, except in its highest stages, has a definite cultural context. There is spirituality that takes its power from the land, culture and time. That is why most types of magic will not work outside their native lands. There is spirituality that one carries within oneself, and there is a rare spirituality which transcends all time and place. Immigrants try either to maintain their native beliefs or to adopt the beliefs of their host country. The first option is difficult. They are in a culture incompatible with their native beliefs and will sustain their spirituality only if it was already strongly established. In the second case, where immigrants adopt the host country's spirituality, they must learn an entirely new system. In either case, immigrants must cope with the problems of conflict between two cultures until they reach a spiritual stage where cultural references become meaningless. Wow, this is a really interesting passage if you have ever been an immigrant, if you've ever, lived as an expat, if you've ever lived abroad. And this can even go beyond living somewhere for an extended period of time, but even traveling through places, right? There's something very, as it says here, quite isolating about being in the, amongst millions, as it says here, amongst a crowd of people, amongst, all the things going on, but feeling like very, very different, feeling alone, feeling isolated. There is a beauty in that in travel, and a lot of people really enjoy that feeling, but it can be, as it says here, quite an isolating experience to be very, very far from your home, very, very far from your culture, from your family, from things that are familiar to you. And I actually just had that revelation myself because I spent the last 6 months traveling around the world, and I actually went back to my home country of Australia for the first time in 12 years. And it was a really, really interesting experience. I actually made a post about it on Instagram if you wanted to read it there. But it's a very interesting thing to be an immigrant, to be a foreigner in foreign lands, and to feel comfortable there, like especially here in Costa Rica. As I said, today is my 15-year anniversary of living here. I feel very comfortable here. I've made this place my home. But at a fundamental level, it's actually not my home because I'm not from here. And a lot of things have happened to me over the last 15 years that I've lived here. As it says here, uncertainty, absolutely. Exploitation, absolutely. I was very naive when I first moved here, and anybody that knows my story of coming to Costa Rica and what I went through, I was absolutely exploited. Discrimination, that happens all the time. I'm not from here. I'm white. I'm a gringa. I'm all of those things. These are things that we have to put up with when we choose to live in a country that is not our own. Hostility, poverty, and sometimes separation from family. I've been through all of those things, and anybody that's been an immigrant or anybody that's chosen to live abroad or in a country that's not their own has probably been through these things. Obviously my situation isn't as extreme as people that are seeking asylum from their countries. They're escaping war and other horrible things that happen in their family. That's a completely different type of immigration. Obviously, I chose to immigrate. I chose to leave my home country. I chose to live abroad. So that choice is a little bit different than if you're forced to do it. But leaving behind everything that is familiar to you, including your home country, your native language, your culture, your family, every single thing that you were brought up with, that you were raised with, that was inherently part of you, leaving that behind and going and starting fresh somewhere else is a very, very, very difficult thing that a lot of human beings, if you haven't done it, you perhaps don't really understand the undertaking that it is for a lot of people. And as I said, I've done it twice now because I left Australia, went to the United States, then I left the United States and went to Costa Rica. So I've been through it twice, but obviously I'm not, in a political asylum or anything like that. It has been my choice. But it also doesn't make it any easier to have to be so adaptable and to walk away from everything you know and start from scratch. And some of those things that happen along the way can be very, very testing and very trying. But I'm sitting here after my decision 15 years ago, despite everything that I went through to be here and, have stayed here. I love it here very much. I feel very comfortable here. I love Costa Rica. I love my life here. But at a fundamental level, it's actually not where I'm from and not who I am. And I've had to become very, very adaptable to fit into life here. So you might want to sit and think about that if you are an expat as well, if this is something that you've been through, or you're perhaps considering moving abroad, or you've spent any amount of time as a traveler. It's a very interesting concept to leave your homeland, leave your culture, leave all the things that are familiar to you, and spend time somewhere where you are not, how do I say this? You're not the word normal doesn't really work, but you're putting yourself so far outside of your comfort zone. It's very, very interesting to sit with that and see what comes up. So have a think about being an immigrant. If it's something that's familiar to you, that can be your journaling prompt for today. You might want to sit and ponder that for a minute. If you've ever spent an extended period of time somewhere outside of your home country, you can think about that as well. And if you're considering doing that, something to think about. What does being an immigrant mean to you and in your personal lived experience? So thank you so much for being here for 213 days. It's always lovely to start the morning with you, and I will check in with you tomorrow. Bye.